Welcome to the Steve and Cimino Says Boom podcast, issue number 10.
Boom!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to issue number 10 of the Steve and Cimino Says Boom podcast. I'm your host, John Cimino, with our co-host, Steve Says Boom over there. And down below us, we have Otto from the Grotto, Three Men in a Basement. Otto, what do people need to know?
People need to know that we've made it to issue 10 right now, and
Wow.
You guys still haven't kicked me off yet, so I'm still hanging around. So it's great to see you both today. And as always, remember to like and comment, share the video, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Just been a great time. I turned somebody onto this the other day. They said they've been watched all 9 episodes. All
Wow.
9. They've been watched it all. They said it was fantastic. And then he went and told somebody else about it. So it's growing, fellas. It's growing.
Thank you, Otto. And as you know, we're creeping into our annual issue number 12. Special guest star will be on that, and there'll be so much more to come. But let's get into issue number 10. We got Steve Says Boom, and Steve, this is your episode. He's going to take us on a little trip, a little comic trip. Take it away, brother.
All right, now this is something a little different. This is a little more modern than some people were probably expecting. I have mentioned this before, but my fanatical Marvel following goes all the way up, realistically speaking, until about 1995. I carried on a little bit up until 1999, but at the time this book was published, I was in my peak, okay? This book is 1991. I'm 33 years old. I am reading everything. I am buying every back issue. Every comic store in California knew my name. I was spending everything. I was single. I had nothing to worry about except buying and collecting. I had my first computer. I was inputting information. If we were to showcase that version of Steve, even I would be scared of him because he was the most single-minded fanatic that I have ever seen. So without further ado, what are we talking about today? We're talking about Thor 437.
Ooh.
Okay. As you can see, my copy is signed. I managed to meet Ron Frenz, who is the artist, and talk to him about this issue. But please, let's just take a note about what's going on this cover. First thing you'll see is, even though it's 1991, it has more of a vintage feel to it. Notice the wording on the cover, the little picture of the Enchantress, and this was a specific design. Tom DeFalco is the writer. And by the way, Tom DeFalco is also the editor at this time, which means that he could not be countermanded. He wanted a cover design. No one could come in and say, I don't like that. Okay. Both Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz are very similarly minded. Both are enthralled and come from the school of Stan Lee. Okay. Of course, Ron Frenz is a huge John Buscema and Sal Buscema fanatic. So, of course, he's got me right away.
This is when they went back to basics. I noticed that too. In my collecting days, I started collecting too because I was like, oh, this is interesting. They're going back to the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby days, and you had Sinnott doing the inks too, right? Sinnott.
Yes, a lot of Joe Sinnott. Of course, they alternated between Sinnott and Al Milgrom.
Okay, but I noticed that, and then this, obviously the little Hercules up there. That's Ella. Remember when the Beatles were going to be appearing in that Strange Tales and the Thing and Johnny Storm? They're just their heads, and they got the Beatles hairstyle, and they're talking.
Yes, Strange Tales 130.
Yeah, so you can tell the classicness and all that. So yeah, Steve, I remember these perfectly.
Now I remember reading preview. I think it was in Amazing Heroes, and someone in a rather negative fashion said, "What is this? The 1960s? Don't they realize it's the 1990s?" However, for me, I couldn't be more happy because I am drawn towards the more dynamic part of superheroes. Okay, if you want to do a subtle comic, with each page slowly flowing as they're drawing, as a cup of coffee is being poured, and someone, spends 19 issues and it gets to the fact that, wait a minute, they're just about leaving the door. Hey, all strength to you. But I am going to fall asleep. And in this issue, basically, Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz are going to give us...
And this is when Image is on top of the world, right? This is when Image, like 1991, Image is on top of the world right now. All that art. This is so different.
In 1991, they hadn't quite broken out yet. Remember, the first book is 1992.
Oh, was it 92?
Yes. Okay. However, those stars that would later on leave Marvel, obviously you had Todd working on Spider-Man, and you had,
Jim Lee,
Bob Liefeld running riot over Marvel with X-Force. That was the supposed new style. And that was the comics that we were told we were supposed to be reading. Okay? Like, oh, you got to read that. And I don't mean to be harsh.
Be harsh. I couldn't take it. I was like,
Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man to me was just literally like pulling teeth.
And
I hate to say it. I know there's a massive amount of fans out there that love it, but that first story, Torment, it was torment. I got a screwdriver and jammed it into my brain.
Wait, Steve, let me just say really quick. Spider-Man's big eyes, hated it. Hated in all the movies, hated it. When they finally went back to the Romita style as they're doing today, I hated it. I hated it. I'm sorry.
Now, before anyone jumps on me and screams, what's this got to do with what I'm talking about? What I'm talking about is, and this happened a lot to me, when someone would say to me at the time, "What am I reading?" And I go, "Oh my God, I'm loving Thor right now." They would look at me like I was some sort of strange, deranged fool. They're like, "Whoa, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Well, why are you sorry?" I said, "I'm having a great time." I said, "You go off and read what you want to read. I'm going to read this." And right now, let's kick into the specifics. Let's get to the splash page. Okay. And it opens up. Okay. Look at it. You're opening up right away. Okay. And I know, John, this is right down your alley as well. It's like, boom. Okay. Clash with Quasar. Okay. Now, for some context, why in the hell is Hercules punching Eric Masterson Thor? And by the way, just for some context, this is the Eric Masterson Thor. You can take a look at that costume. Okay. And again, people will say to me, "Well, how come you liked Eric Masterson?" That's because of the skill of Tom DeFalco, the writer, that made me interested in his character. Okay. Yes, I'm a Thor fanatic. I love Thor. I always knew Thor was going to come back, but I was okay with Eric Masterson. In this panel, that splash page, Hercules has just found out really quite recently that Thor is now Eric Masterson and has decided that he needs to be trained. And the only way to be trained is, I'm going to punch you in the face and let's see how you react to it. So we open up right there.
The gift.
Again, this is pure Silver Age Hercules, by the way. This is the Hercules that Roy was writing when Hercules first joined the Avengers. If you take a look at his vernacular and the way he's acting, truly magnificent. So if we want to go to the next page.
Give me 1 second, fellas. There are a little technical difficulties here. Let's see.
Steve, I think that's a panel swipe. You can tell. I think that was taken from. That's definitely the way Thor is backed like that is definitely Kirby. But go ahead.
Okay, is that the next panel there, Otto? Next page.
That's what I have. Yep. From here, we're gonna go here.
Okay, I thought we had a little page in between. Okay, that's fine. So let's get into the plan. And only Hercules can think of a plan like this. Eric Masterson basically tells him off and says, "Look, I don't like the way you're training because all you're doing is punching me in the face. Okay, that has got to stop." So Hercules is like, there's only one way that I can teach a god how to become godly. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trick. Okay. I'm going to trick someone into fighting Thor so that Thor can be tested, but under my conditions. I'm going to do, like a controlled experiment. So as you can see in this panel, and Hercules is not the smartest, person in the world, but he's trying his best here. And basically, Quasar arrives, and he's basically explaining, "Hey, you're never going to believe it, but Thor, his mind has been taken over by some mysterious alien force. It's going to be our job to, deal with it." And the funny thing is, right there, you can see Quasar's like, "Well, let's communicate with the Avengers." And Hercules just breaks his communication card. Goes, no, it's okay. Let's it's if Thor also has a communication card, we can't alert him to what's going on. Now, Quasar is basically a new Avenger at this time, sort of, basically. And for some context, Quasar's own run is on issue 27 right now, so he's still fairly, newish into his run. He has, when it comes to the Avengers, he's a newbie. And for him, Hercules is a senior Avenger. So he's expecting to be not tricked. Okay, next page.
You got it.
All right. So this is where things get complicated and then all gets messed up. Hercules has a sort of a plan where he thinks, well, Quasar and Thor will have a little tussle and I'll be able to get, a chance to see Thor, fighting, and then I can correct him later on. He'll be good with that. Unfortunately for everyone involved, the Enchantress is also interested in this Eric Masterson Thor. She has heard that there's a new Thor on Earth, and there's rumors that her original Thor is not around. And in this, basically, she's actually not quite happy. She's like, well, wait a minute. I actually had sort of a thing for Thor, but let me investigate who this new guy is anyway. So what she does is says, well, I'm going to play this game as well. So as you can see, she pops up. Quasar being, the goody two shoes, he doesn't immediately attack or anything, and she plants a kiss on his lips, which, as all three of us know, when the Enchantress gives you a kiss on the lips, she has full power and sway. So, with that said, in Quasar's mind, he thinks that Thor has been taken over by an alien presence. But with the Enchantress taking him over, now he's like, there's no inhibitions. He is going to go hell for leather. And take a look at that bottom panel. He comes roaring in. And then if you can, take a look at Quasar's face. He is furious right there. And I mean, he just cracks into his back. Even Hercules is like, what the?
My back hurts just looking at that.
I mean, no one else could have taken that crack. Only Thor or Eric Masterson, can take that crack. So next page. Now, they're having a little fight. They're having a tussle. And then finally, Quasar's like, okay, I don't like your hammer. Your hammer hurts. Okay? So I'm going to put your hammer inside a quantum, force field, which is basically unbreakable. I had seen that quantum force field used countless times in the Quasar comic, and no one got anywhere near it. Okay, and take a look at this. I mean, this is like Stan and Jack running Supreme again. Take
Steve,
a look at the way.
Can I tell you where they actually got that? They took that from. That's from Silver Surfer #4, when Silver Surfer puts Thor's hammer in the shield, and he says, "I say thee more, and more I say thee never," and he breaks it. That's where the little inspiration of that's coming from.
Yes, you can bet your bottom dollar.
Yeah,
Tom DeFalco had probably read that issue 50,000 times.
Yeah.
Okay. But there it is. Eric Masterson is going to put all of his pressure, and he actually breaks through. It's incredible. And look at that. Shakal. Okay. And then here, Hercules is beginning to feel that, hey, wait a minute. Wow, Quasar's really going for it right now. This is, a little bit more than I was thinking. Still unaware, if you can see that bottom panel, the Enchantress is like, ooh, this is interesting. This new Thor is, he's pretty good. Let's see what happens next. All right, next page. All right. So these guys are pretty evenly matched, you know, and take a look at that page. Quasar is using his full quantum levels, his bands, the power's raging off, but he can't get past that hammer. Okay, Eric Masterson really has learned his game. He's doing a really good job. You can bet your bottom dollar the Hercules is quite proud of the way Eric Masterson is defending himself right here. And what I like about this is that Tom DeFalco is writing Quasar, and you would never guess that it's not Mark Grunwald writing it. Mark Grunwald was the writer over on his own book. And Mark Grunwald had basically been writing Quasar nonstop since Marvel 2-in-1 back in the late 1970s. No one else had really written Quasar. And anyone else who, you know, now I don't mean to, you know, pour cold water on anything, but in recent years when anyone wrote Quasar, it's just been, it's been like a bucket of dead fish. Okay. But during this time, Tom DeFalco, he understands Quasar magnificently. So what he does, he has Quasar film these quantum band nunchucks, and he's like, look at, he's just smacking the hell out of Eric Masterson, right? Now, there's no way Quasar would have usually done this, but he is under the influence of the Enchantress, and he does think that Thor is under an alien manifestation. So we'll go to the next page.
Oh, let's see right there. Right here. There we go.
Now, at this point, right, Hercules is like, wait a minute. This fight is getting out of control. What in the hell is going on? And of course, he looks over and he's like, oh my God, the Enchantress is here. And then he begins to realize exactly what's happening. Okay, so now now that the cat's out of the bag, but it's too late. Quasar and Thor are racking and going. But by this time, Eric Masterson is beginning to recover. He's like, he's getting hit by these quantum band nunchucks, but he's just taking a little breath. And he's like, okay, all right, I'm going to show this guy. I've got to take care of the business. So grabs the nunchucks and just slashes him to the side, taking Quasar off of his feet. Next page. Now, this is one of my favorite pages of all time. Quasar has finally had enough. And he's like, I can't beat this guy normally. I am going to unleash hell. Look at that. He just uses the quantum band. It's a giant sword. Now take a look at the first panel, okay, panel 3, okay, and take a look at Quasar's face. He is totally insane with power right now. He's like, I'm going to win. And when I talked to Ron Frenz about this issue, I said, Ron, I said, why did you draw his face like that? You know, he had never been like that. Quasar was always sort of like a goody-goody, and sometimes would have this inner dialogue, third-person dialogue, sort of like Spider-Man. And here he is. He is that. What do you think he's going to do with that sword? He is going to kill. He's going absolutely nuts. So Eric Masterson, it's like he's holding it at bay, and then take a look at that panel 5, and then the bands, the gauntlets strike back. They're like whoosh, and they give him like electric shock right to his head, right there. You know, and Eric Masterson's like, "What the hell happened? Your bands attacked you." And of course, I was like, "Oh, okay, it's a fail safe. It's a fail safe."
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
When my brain, you know, when my gauntlets discover that I've been taken over. So finally, they're coming to the fight between them two guys is over. Of course, now that the influence of Enchantress is over. Okay, and then they're like, well, what's going on right now? They can hear this other noise. Next page.
Okay.
So they look over and they see the Hercules, you know, is trying to attack the Enchantress, and she's trying to defend herself. And then before anything can happen, she's like, okay, I'm gone. You know, boom, off she goes. And this is where Hercules gets into trouble. Because he's basically like, oh, wow, okay. Wow, this really didn't go as well as good. This little training strategy that I had planned didn't go very well. And take a look. Quasar and Thor are looking at each other going, training? What? They are not happy. Well, go to the next page. So, you see the first panel? They're like, hey, guys, you know, it's been really nice seeing you. You know, meeting you. You know, I'm sure we're going to meet again. And then you can see Hercules is like, hey, guys. Hey, you know, it was just a, you know, I didn't mean it. There's no malice intended. They've wrapped him up in a quantum band, little band right there.
Oh.
And they're just, yes, like a little bow. And they're going to leave him attached, and off they go. And Hercules is like, hey, guys, you don't leave me here, right? No. And off they go. How much fun was that?
That they bringing back the Silver Age once again. Fun, action, like almost in it, like Hercules, kind of a bumbling, but yet he means well, but like his
yeah.
doesn't think things through. Go ahead,
But isn't this, guys? Is this a? Would you say that this is kind of a swipe to SF Silver Surfer Thor?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, with
Yeah.
Thor and Silver Surfer, except Quasar right there, almost.
Yeah. I mean, it's relatively close.
It's relatively close, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
relatively close. Again, of course, John already mentioned the other swipe. Of course.
Well, I think what they're doing is and I'm pretty sure DeFalco even maybe said that, because Frenz can do. He's almost like a newer age Sal Buscema. Like
Yes,
you can see his lines are like that too. They're simple, and I'm sure DeFalco's reasonings for that is they want to get back to the Silver Age. They want those. So the panel swipes are probably to get the whole feel. So they're trying to get that everything in there, that when the comics are, I think, the best and fun. And that's the reason why I got into Thor at that time too, is because I like how they brought it back. And plus with Eric Masterson, he was still learning the ropes. He reminded me of Wonder Man back in the 70s. Remember when Wonder Man was always second guessing himself? He couldn't utilize his strength because he still wasn't up to the par of the other Avengers. And that's what I liked about Eric Masterson. He was very flawed. And so Hercules training him and doing all that stuff, that was always in that. And he was always second guessing himself. And toward the end, he started coming into his own, which he becomes Thunderstrike later. And they take that team of DeFalco and Frenz, and they end up doing that series too. But I wanted to also throw out there, I love the space in Quasar's cape.
Yes,
that
the same as
I forgot about that.
Marvel.
Yeah, it
had the same thing.
Yeah, but it's just so cool, and I forgot about that. And looking at it, I thought that was a great little thing there that was awesome. And I also want to throw out, we know Quasar is a Roy Thomas co-creation, and he was the guy to introduce the quantum bands, which now you know, though, right now, Steve? Now you know.
Well, of course, anyone that knows Roy knows that he knows his history, and anyone who knows Quasar knows it goes back to Marvel Boy.
Yeah.
That
was Stan Lee and McNeely, I think. Stan Lee. It was a creation by Martin Goodman too. I think was a co-creator of that. Martin, Stan Lee, and Joe McNeely. Who the go-to artist? It was back in the 50s, and he was called Marvel Boy.
Yes, it's actually back to 1950.
Yeah, 1950.
Yeah, so it's it's definitely historical context, and when you talk about historical context and continuity, you got to say Roy, okay? Because Roy basically brought Marvel Boy back to the Marvel Universe in Fantastic Four 164 as the Crusader.
Yeah,
and in issue 165, the Crusader, his body just melts away, okay, disperses with energy, and those quantum bands, okay, they get given to S.H.I.E.L.D. Then later on, those bands get given to Wendell Vaughn, who we first see in Captain America 217. Okay, now of course he's known as Marvel Man for a while, and then later on, of course, in Incredible Hulk 234, he gets called Quasar for the first time, and as John has already noted, that was by Roger Stern. And then but in that issue, it basically says, when Quasar flies off in issue 235, I think it is, when he flies off, it says to be continued in Marvel 2-in-1, and that's when Mark Gruenwald grabs hold of that character. But the thing is, people tend to, throw me into the same book. They're like, well, Steve's a silver bronze guy. He probably stopped reading in 1980. No, there was great times for me. This is 1991. This is actually cover dated October. At this time, I had just arrived in the USA. Okay, I arrived in the USA. Okay, in July of 1991, and I moved in. I was right there in California. There was a comic shop up the road called Heidi Ho Comics. And I remember I had this little period where, you know, I was trying to get set, you know, going to buy comics was not the main thing I was doing. I was trying to, you know, get my life together here. So as soon as I was set, okay, and I was like, okay, you know, I've got to find out what's going on. I went over to Heidi Ho and I was able to start picking up these issues. And at this time, by the way, the raging story going along was the Infinity Gauntlet. So we're talking about a magical time for me. And then, as I said, when I do my claim sales or when I'm talking about comics, people are like, hey, 60s and 70s. This is the 1990s, okay? And when I say I was at my peak, I had huge gaps in my collection, massive gaps. And I would read an issue and I'm like, oh, okay, I need more issues. And I would go down to the comic shop, buy a couple of new issues, okay? And then go and buy all of these back issues. So right now, at this time when I was reading, I didn't have all those early Thors. I didn't have Thor 126 up.
Oh.
I didn't have a single copy of Journey into Mystery. Are you kidding me? When I was in England, if you had said to the shop owner, can you find me an issue of Journey to Mystery? He would slap you. Get out of my store. You think you are in America? All right. So at this time when I was reading stuff like this, I was unaware of where they're taking their inspiration. Okay. However, when I went back to start buying back issues, I noticed a similarity because obviously Ron Frenz is a massive John Buscema fan. So when I started picking up a lot of the John Buscema Thors, I was like, oh, this is just as good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go further back. So it built up a fanatical response in me where I closed everything off in my life. And all I did was go to work, eat, sleep, and go to comic shops and go to shows and buy and fill in, because it wasn't something that was completely different. Okay. These days, here, you know, in 2022, the Thor of today has no relation at all to the Thor of 1972.
No.
It has no relation to it at all in art or anything style. Yeah. So I can understand how a young reader today who is enamored with the new Thor, when they go back and read older ones, they're like, oh, I don't know about that.
Right.
I never had to suffer that. I'm reading these new issues and going, oh, I love this. I go back, you know, now Tom DeFalco is also writing in the same style as Jerry Conway. He's writing in the same style as a Roy Thomas, as a Stan. Okay. So I had an understanding of where I was going. And as I was going further and further back, there wasn't anything that was, you know, that was pissing me off or anything. I was like, wow, this is only getting better. Okay. All I kept seeing was my wallet getting emptier and emptier as I was going further and further back. And I'm like, well, you know, now you finished your Thor, Steve. What about those Journey to Mysteries? I was like, oh, God, it's taking me so long to do the Thors. Oh, God, the Journey to Mysteries. It's blood coming from my eyes. So I wanted to use this special episode, this showcase, to really showcase the fact that it's the 1990s. And I was fanatically following a group of Marvel titles. I was following Quasar. I was following Thor. I was following the Avengers and the Fantastic Four religiously. Okay. Every month when the issue finished, I was like, oh my God, I've got to wait a whole month for this. Are you kidding me? At the time, I followed the X-Men and I was like, okay. Spidey was great. I was watching it. So if someone was to go back in a time machine and see this version of me, they would be astonished with how diverse I am in my reading. I was reading the entire Marvel Universe, even stuff that I wasn't really interested in. Yes, I was also picking up books like Ghost Rider and Punisher, which today you couldn't pay me enough to read. And by the way, I sold all my Ghost Riders and Punishers. They're not in my collection anymore. I just got rid of them. Okay. But there was so much for me as someone. Remember, I'm 33 years old. I'm 33, and I am in my peak of reading, researching, and knowledge. At that time, anything I'd read, you asked me, I could reply to you. I could retort it out of my brain, panel by panel. Okay? Just incredible. I had a whole team of indexes next to me, and I was like, oh, I've got to know more. It was like a need. It was like, I need to know everything. I need to get everything.
Steve, this is where our collecting is pretty parallel, but this is where we start to differ because you're coming to this country and now you're going back. I've already been collecting since the mid 80s, everything. So getting all those back issues, I was already caught up by 1991. I
Wait a
had the
minute,
run.
that means that you were one of those lucky Yanks.
Yeah. But I had the runs of Spider-Man, Hulk, Avengers, all going crazy, and I got it all. So this was kind of a sad moment in me because now you had just prior to this you had the Hulk as a gray Hulk, which I didn't really care about because he got depowered, and then we're into the intellectual Hulk, the Professor Hulk, the Peter
Yes.
David stuff, which is absolute atrocious. I could not stand, but I was collecting religiously, and I would go on. I collected till 2003. Just really quick, what made me stop collecting was the Marvel, the Avengers versus the Justice League, the Perez stuff. You remember that was coming out by Kurt Busiek?
Yes.
And on issue number 3, Superman defeats Thor, and I said, "I'm done. I'm done." I never got number 4, and I never collected again. Never collected again.
Really?
But,
that's the point of no return? That's
but
it?
I was already declining because Peter David's Hulk crap was just crap. I could not stand it. The Hulk we see now in the MCU is all atrocious. I could not stand that. I wanted the Roy Thomas Hulk. I wanted the Stan Lee Hulk. I wanted the Sal Buscema Hulk, the Bill Mantlo Hulk. That's what I got. So as I'm collecting and I'm going back, it's so awesome. But as I go forward, it's all starting to go downhill. Thor was a little different because I got that energy again. But I was so pro Hulk and so disgusted by the Peter David stuff, I could not stand it. And so year by year by year, and I stuck in there, it just got worse and worse, and we never had the Hulk again. So that killed me. And then the last straw was Superman defeating Thor, and I was like, I'm out. So where you're starting to go into your heyday, I'm already fat with all the good stuff, and so now I'm starting to decline. I hung in there, but I remember because I 1991, 92, I graduated, so I'm starting to leave home. I'm going to college, but I would always I was right next to a comic book store, so I was always getting that stuff. But I was like, when is this intellectual Hulk gonna die? So Thor was a little fresh. Like the Professor Hulk was so, and all the multiple personalities, and now he's a shapeshifter. This is what I think about the shapeshifter. Horrible. But this is where we start to lose.
Yes.
We start to lose. I was already educated.
The funny thing is again, we share so many reading and collecting traits because I felt exactly the same way about the Peter David Hulk. But what I did was I was like, okay, so the Hulk's not going to be my favorite anymore. I'm going to go elsewhere. And I began to really get into the cosmic titles. And of course, again, I was just very lucky that we were just about to get into the Infinity Gauntlet sagas. Jim Starlin was back at Marvel and he was unleashing. So, yes, I did not like the Professor Hulk, and I was disappointed. And I remember at the time when I would speak to contemporary fans at the time, and I mentioned that I was not into Peter David, some of them had the audacity to say, well, you're not really a Hulk fan.
Oh, geez.
So I would, instead of beating that person to a pulp, of course, I would just say, you know what? It's fine. I go all the way back to Tales to Astonish. I've got all the issues. Okay, I can relax. Okay, I will just move on to other titles. Hence, my Fantastic Four that was being written by Tom DeFalco, my Thor, which is being written by Tom DeFalco, my Avengers, which was actually being written by a guy called Bob Harris.
Yeah.
And he was doing this massive storyline with an artist called Steve Epting. Now, Steve Epting gained fame later on, of course, with Brew Baker on Captain America. But his work on the Avengers, it's a great storyline. Steve Epting is sort of close-ish to the John Buscema-ish style at that point. And it's a massive story. So if you, I don't know whether did you get that far, John? Did you go through the Avengers?
No, I was already starting to, because now going to college, I was starting to get depressed with a lot. I still collected the Hulk, but like it was just over for me. Like it was just, it just never regained. And
Yes.
like I said, I still stuck in there till 2003, but I
Yes.
just could not do it anymore. And like I said, it was just you had to. I just couldn't get into that Hulk. I fell in love with this thing, and then this thing became a different thing. But as I said with the Thor was a little breath of fresh air because I knew they were going back to the classics and stuff. So that was great, and I got into that. But like I said, titles were starting to drop. Like my enthusiasm, and then Image coming on to the scene. I wasn't into that art, and it just started that, and they were calling it the Mylar generation. Remember, I don't know if you remember. Oh, excuse me, the Mylar age, because they didn't know what age to call it, the modern age, but they were calling it the Mylar age because everybody was starting to get putting it into the bags and the backboards, and it meant how, and Wizard was starting to come out and all that, and I just couldn't get into the Hulk with that belt buckle. And just really quick, the funny thing about you say about the Infinity Gauntlet, my problem with that is because the intellectual Hulk was in that. But I don't know if you know this, but Jim Starlin wasn't a fan of that Hulk either. And Jim Starlin was always a fan of the Hulk. Hence why you had Drax talking at that time, talking like the Savage Hulk. And then he had the power gem, swallowed it by mistake. But the madder he got, the stronger he got. I don't know if you remember that. Starlin did that to get that type of character into there, because I don't know if you remember that. Drax the Destroyer was a Hulk character. He was the
Yes.
Savage Hulk, basically. Yeah.
Now, I mean,
he wasn't a fan of the new intellectual
yes.
Hulk.
And the funny thing was that I wasn't a fan, actually, of the Hulk Drax.
Me either.
I was like, oh, okay. But now I do know that, okay, and for all you continuity maniacs out there, you know that Moondragon fried his brain, okay? Moondragon fried his brain. So his brain was gone. So when he was reanimated again, he was basically like a child, and he did speak in those Hulk-like terms. But then again,
it was so depressing to me. I hated it.
The Cosmic Golden Age was about to start. So even though I was the same as you in regards to the Hulk and how I was like, okay, I would buy the issues and I'd flick through, and I would take like 5 minutes, read through, go, oh, okay, that's fine, and put it away and just add it into my comic box because it's like, well, I've been collecting, I've got all the other issues, I might as well get it anyway. And then I went off and enjoyed the titles that I was really enjoying, And of course, apart from those other 4 main ones that I was reading, soon it was going to be joined, of course, all the Infinity Gauntlet, the Silver Surfer, and then, of course, the Warlock series. And, of course, reading Silver Surfer, Warlock, and Quasar, I was full cosmic mode, and I was able to put my Hulk thing aside, But when I read this issue, by the way, I read this issue last night, and I read the issue again this morning. And it's funny, but there's like a tinge of sadness within me when I read this, because when I read this, I'm back there when I was 33, and I'm enjoying it so much. And I thought at this time it was going to go on forever. Okay, I was like, I'm in the Marvel universe up to my neck. I'm going to be reading forever. There's nothing that's not going to stop me. And what we're talking about, John, and something definitely, that you've alluded to here, is it's a generational change. And the artists and writers that we became accustomed to, they moved on, and the new guys came on, and they write in a different style. Now, I'm not going to say, that they're crap or anything like that. They're writing in a different style. So to me, slowly but surely, I followed, a little bit later on the same path as you. I would drop books, go, okay, it's not doing anything. It's not doing so much to me. So that's why, when I knew it was going to be my chance to showcase an issue this week, I was like, I have to showcase this book because people aren't going to be expecting me to be talking about a book from 1991. And I know there's a lot of guys out there right now like, I have that book as well. Sometimes, because not many people, John, have the Journey to Mystery 112, okay? But this issue, I know a lot of people have, okay? And what I have found in recent years, and it makes my heart feel good, is there is a clique of people now that really love this era of Thor, okay? Yeah. And they didn't seem to exist when I was reading it. Everyone laughed at me and said, Steve, you've got to grow up. You've got to, didn't you read Watchmen? Okay. So now, sometimes when I speak to someone, I'm like, "Hey, you know, I really love the DeFalco Frenz Thor." They're like, oh, "You did? I loved it too, but I thought I was the only one." I'm like, "No. There is a lot of us out there that love this, and we can now fully acknowledge that this was probably the last homage to the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby version of Marvel ever. This has never been duplicated because Tom DeFalco was the writer and editor. No one could tell him what to do. The sales were good enough to pull this book along. And even though other titles like the X-Men and stuff like that were getting darker and darker and the storylines are getting more like, you know, for me, a snore fest, you know, because at this time, if you open up the X-Men, all you got was Gambit and Rogue saying, I can't touch you. If I take my glove off, I'll hurt you. You know, and tears. Just put a bullet in my head. Okay. Yeah. Ugh. Okay. And then, of course, they had all that stuff with Strife, Cable. Okay.
They started getting, I wasn't into that either.
Just having this at the time, that was, you know, my enjoyment.
There's a little. That series was a little beacon of hope in a dark, like in what as the lights were going down, that became like a little light because it was
definitely the last of its kind.
Yeah.
And also Tom DeFalco is basically the last of his kind.
Yeah. A
person like him will never work at Marvel again. And it's so sad. And that's why I have this little tinge of sadness. Because after I read it this morning, I haven't read anything since, Original Sin.
Yeah.
And I'm outside of the Marvel Universe. And every time I try, I'll hear something and I get hyped up. Maybe. And I'll open it up. And then I throw the book on the floor and I'm like, why did I try? Why did I try? You know, and I'm so envious. And I'm going to go so far to say I'm jealous of people who are reading comics today and enjoying it, and they're in the same position that I was back then. They're like, I can't wait for the next issue. I'm like, I used to be like that. Yeah. But I know in my heart it's not coming back because this is never going to be seen again. Now, you might get a one-off special. You know, you'll get a page, like 4 or 5 pages in an annual where someone does a flashback story. And they always hire Ron Frenz to do like a Kirby story and stuff like that. And you get a little taste. You know, it's like, oh, it's like a little ice cream right there. Okay? But generally speaking, this was definitely the last of its kind.
Last passion.
I'm so happy to showcase it today. And if you are a Thor fan and you have not read these issues because you stopped after Walt Simonson, please, I know at some point we are going to get into some more Thor, okay? There's plenty of good Thor that we're going to get into on our different showcases. But again, this is another book that suffered from people, they were from 2 eras. They're like, well, I'm a Lee Kirby guy. And then like, well, I'm a Simonson fan. And they read nothing else.
No.
Please, go ahead, read all the way up to issue 459, okay? Enjoy it because it really was the last of its kind.
All right, before we end here, Otto, in the 90s, what were you doing? Did you even start?
Oh, no, yeah, he was reading Brigade.
Well, here's what happened. Yes and no. So here's what happened. During that time, I had taken maybe a 4-year hiatus back and forth. So that was a time I was moving a few times. I went to one college. They asked me not to come back. So I had to move again to another college and stuff like that. So I wasn't actively collecting. But the following year when I got home, unfortunately, I was home. I had some extra money. I bought all those books that I shouldn't have bought that I've got in long boxes now that are worth nothing. So I wasn't reading that. That's a great throwback to what you guys were talking about. And so I wasn't actively collecting at that time, but in 92, I did buy all the stuff with all the pouches and all the big feet and all the bad characters.
Oh.
You know, and it is what it is.
Oh, I know.
Hey, I know. But, you know, I was still at the comic shops. I was still ogling over books. I just wanted to gobble up something and I had it. So I wasn't really buying back issues, but that's a great run. That sounds fantastic. I love the graphics that you put together, Steve. That was a great talk about it.
Well, at least it got you back into the collecting. Like it got you back. You
For
brought you
sure,
back.
you know.
But it's funny, me and Steve coming from back there, I could see all that in the horizon, and it just was just such a dark, dark thing.
Yeah.
But hey, thank Steve. Love to hear what you say. Love the issue. Love the time. Can't wait to hear more. We got issue 11 next week. Maybe we have a little special stuff going on there. And then our annual issue 12, we got another special guest star. Oh, and he's going to have a good time. And he's going to and we always have a good time with this guy. So, all right. So, Steve, any last words, what we have to say before we throw Mjolnir and get the hell out of here?
You know what? This has been a really great and more personal episode than I've had so far. I really enjoyed it, but there are going to be some more 1990s books coming up in some showcases. I'm going to keep surprising you, okay? But this has been a lot of fun for me today. Boom.
Boom.